What's up guys, my name is Ace, and Modern Warfare 2 finally added a 10v10 mode a couple days ago, and now that I've got a good amount of playtime on this, I wanted to share my overall thoughts and experiences with this, as well as some constructive feedback toward the end. And diving right in, I've got to say I am loving 10v10 in Modern Warfare 2 so far, and I'd even go so far as to say that playing 10v10 has been the best experience I've had in Modern Warfare 2 since the game launched. While it obviously doesn't fix the core issues with the game, the number one word that kept popping into my head as I was playing with this is refreshing. It's been so refreshing to play 10v10 in this game and experience the 6v6 maps in a totally different way. It almost feels like I'm playing a different game just on the same maps that we've been playing since launch. And in my experience so far, at least on many of the especially bigger maps in the game like Museum or Turok, I think 10v10 is playing much more like the Call of Duty that I know and love from the past. With Modern Warfare 2, it seems like one of their big design goals was to slow things down a bunch and implement a bunch of mechanics to discourage people from being as aggressive as they're used to in Call of Duty. As a result, I feel like I've had to sort of adapt to this slower pace of play with 6v6 throughout the year, and while I've still been able to find some enjoyment with 6v6, I just feel like it hasn't really been hitting the same as previous years. It just feels like I'm actively having to slow down much more than I would like to, or when I do try to play really aggressive, I often find myself playing like hide and seek. It's like I'm running around the map just trying to find people to shoot. So having 10v10 now is really refreshing, and it feels much more like the pace that I want to play in Call of Duty. Additionally, a lot of the bigger maps like Museum and Turok and Border Crossing, they can often play way too slow and boring for 6v6, to the point where you almost always see those maps go to the time limit, depending on the mode that you're playing, of course. Whereas with 10v10, it's like these maps were built for that. They actually play great for 10v10, and I'm having a blast on those. I'm seeing them through totally different eyes now, and I'm having a blast on these maps that I generally don't like playing 6v6 on. Now, when it comes to some of the smaller maps that are in rotation for 10v10, like Shoot House for instance, I noticed that's in rotation. Yeah, of course, in those cases, it can definitely be maybe a little too chaotic. It is pretty crazy, but at the end of the day, that's what you sign up for when you join into a higher player count mode. But another really big thing that contributes to me enjoying 10v10, I think, is just the fact that footstep audio is far less relevant in this mode. You can't really rely on that footstep audio to pinpoint enemies' exact location in real time through surfaces like you can in 6v6. And the simple reason for this is there's a lot more noise going around the map. There's way more footsteps to be aware of, like teammate and enemy footsteps. There's a lot more explosions and gunfire and kill streaks in the air. And with all of this combined, I've just found that I'm far more confident making pushes in 10v10. I'm running into far fewer situations where I want to make a push, but I have to actively hold myself back because I just know the enemies are going to hear me because it's too quiet in that moment. And this is great for me because it feels much more like the traditional Call of Duty that I know and love, because in almost every other Call of Duty game, we've had access to a dead silence perk, which allows for that more aggressive playstyle without having to worry about people sitting in a corner, just relying on footsteps as their primary source of awareness. Additionally, I think one of the big reasons I'm so hyped with 10v10 is I just noticed I'm getting into that flow state a lot more frequently than in 6v6. And what I mean by flow state is when you just get locked in and you're just going from kill to kill to kill, you're chaining them together, you're keeping a rhythm going, you're keeping a flow going. That is the type of thing that really hooked me into Call of Duty in the early days, is when I started getting good at doing that. And that would provide sort of like a high that I would chase, is when can I get to that next situation where I engage into that flow state and I can just chain through my kills. And while that definitely can happen sometimes in 6v6 in this game, I just find that it's happening far more frequently in 10v10, and it's happening more so at a rate than I'm used to with Call of Duty now. So overall, when you combine these elements, I've just been finding that 10v10 in Modern Warfare 2, pacing-wise, is starting to play a lot more like the typical 6v6 experience I would expect in a non-modern Infinity Ward Call of Duty game. So yeah, overall, I'm feeling very positive about 10v10 so far. And I do want to be very clear, this is a positive video, but now I did want to talk about some of the issues I've noticed with 10v10 especially, and I am going to provide some feedback here as well. Because while it has been very refreshing and I've been having a blast playing it so far, I do find that it will exacerbate a lot of the issues that you experience in this game. And the first big issue here, which is no surprise at all, this is the spawns. The spawns in 6v6 since the game launched absolutely suck already, and 10v10 just makes them feel even worse. This style of spawn system seems to be designed primarily to eliminate the concept of map control, or at least to reduce the effectiveness of map control. And as a result, I just feel like this leads to a lot of strange situations and really weird flow throughout a match as well. And like I said, while this isn't unique to 10v10, I experienced this in 6v6 as well. I just feel like now that we have more players on the map, of course, that will exacerbate this issue. So I'm still hoping at some point we'll be seeing some significant improvements to the spawn system overall. Not just for 10v10, but for 6v6 as well. I know Call of Duty Vanguard ended up making a pretty big spawn overhaul last year, and once I did that, I found the gameplay improved dramatically in that game. So I hope Infinity Ward would be able to do the same, but I'm not gonna hold my breath for that one. Next, something that I've noticed, and I've talked to a few other people about this as well, and they seem to be experiencing the same thing. It looks like they don't have all of the maps in rotation for 10v10. And so far, there are a handful of maps that I don't believe are in rotation. We don't know for sure, but I haven't seen anybody playing on these. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong with any of these, but I haven't seen Farm 18, Mercado Las Almas, Albagra Fortress, or Breenberg Hotel show up in 10v10 so far. Honestly, I feel like all of these maps would handle 10v10 just fine. Of course, some of them may be a little more chaotic than others, but I mean, Shoot House is in rotation for 10v10, and if we can play 10v10 on Shoot House, we should be able to handle 10v10 on like Farm 18 or Albagra Fortress, for instance. So in my opinion, I feel like all of the core maps, with one exception, should be in 10v10, and that exception, of course, is Shipment. I do think Shipment is chaotic enough with 6v6. I don't think it needs to be mixed into 10v10 rotation. If anything, for the average player that's playing 10v10, I feel like that would just annoy them. Maybe I'm wrong on that one. I know there's probably a good handful of people that would love to see that extra amount of chaos on Shipment. But yeah, I just found it really strange that we can play Shoot House in 10v10, but not all of these other maps that I consider to be like mid-sized maps for Call of Duty. And then finally, I have one last piece of feedback here that may actually be an unpopular opinion. I'm not too sure, and I'd love to hear what you guys think about this in the comments below. Let me know if I'm way out of line on this one. But this is the game modes that are available. So far in 10v10, I've seen Kill Confirmed, Team Deathmatch, Domination, and Hardpoint. And in my opinion, Hardpoint doesn't really fit well with 10v10, and I don't think it should be in rotation in 10v10. And I've got a couple reasons for this. The first one is the way hardpoint scoring works. You only need one person on the objective to score points, and therefore I just find it weird to have such a high player count where one single person can be doing all the work on the objective, and then everybody else can just be doing their own thing, either defending that objective from a distance or getting cutoffs or just roaming around the map randomly, which is more so what I've found playing hardpoint in this. But another thing I've noticed with Hardpoint is I feel like a higher player count doesn't work super well because the entire objective is focused around one single small area on the map at any given time. And I think that works great for like competitive 4v4 and even 6v6, it works really well. But as you keep increasing the player count, I just think it makes less and less sense to have Hardpoint in rotation. Now again, I realize this may be an unpopular opinion and I may be completely off on this one. It's not that I absolutely hate playing Hardpoint in 10v10. I can handle it, I can manage myself just fine with it. I just feel like it doesn't necessarily fit as well as the other modes that they've added for this. I think the other modes are just much better suited to the higher player count than Hardpoint. And with that, that's gonna wrap it up for today's video on all of my thoughts and opinions and feedback for 10v10. Overall, it's been so refreshing. I'm having an absolute blast with it so far, and I'm hoping that the player count will end up being high enough for them to justify including it as a permanent playlist in the game. Because as of now, it is just meant to be a temporary playlist that the community voted on, and unless the player count ends up being quite high on this, it's likely that this will just return every now and then as a featured mode. But I guess we'll just have to wait to see how that plays out. And this is where I want to hear from you guys in those comments down below. What are your thoughts on the new 10v10 game mode in Modern Warfare 2? Are you enjoying this more than the 6v6 modes, or not so much? Just let me know down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.